Hi guys, we're going to read some more of our Poppy book today. Today we're starting on chapter 6. Looking in your book, it looks like this. At the top of the page it says chapter 6, standing before Mr. Okax. And at the bottom of this page it says 49. So we're on pages 48 and 49 in the book. One of the things you're going to have to know, and remember we talked about this a little bit before, when owls eat an animal, they gulp down the entire animal in one gulp. Gulp! Goes down their throat and into their tummy. But their tummy can't use and process all of the animal. The hair and the fur and the bones, the stomach can't break those down, so what it does is it turns them into a little clump, a little ball, and then Okax spits those up. The owl spits them up, and they end up on the ground in front of the owl's tree, and we call them a pellet. Going to hear about that today. The leaves of the oak trees around Mr. Okax's oak tree shielded him from the rain, but Poppy and her father were being drenched. They were getting really wet. The owl's head, moreover, was pulled down between his wings, while his eyes, enormously wide and unblinking, gave Poppy the sensation that there was nothing she might do, or even think about doing, which he could not or would not see. To Poppy, he seemed to be pure power and fury. Fury means he's mad. Wanting to look away, she glanced at the base of Mr. Okax's tree. There lay what appeared to be a mound of pebbles. Pebbles are rocks. Gradually, a ghastly realization came over her. What she was seeing was a mound of Mr. Okax's upchucked pellets. Upchucked means he threw them up, he spit them up. The closely packed and undigested bits of fur and bones from his different dinners. The vision made her blood turn cold, means it really scared her. Only the sound of Mr. Okax's sneering voice pulled her back to alertness again. "What do you want, Lungwort?" the owl demanded, his claws continually flexing on his perch. Lungwort, holding his cap in one hand like an empty bucket, said, "May I wish you a very pleasant evening, Mr. Okax." "It is not a very pleasant evening," Mr. Okax returned with a snarl. "Oh, no, well, you're absolutely right there, Mr. Okax," Lungwort replied, straining to sound jaunty. "But April showers, as the song goes, brings May flowers, and I—" Mr. Okax clacked his beat. "Lungwort, it's summer. Did you come here to sing me some idiot songs? Or do you have something important to say to me?" "Well, in fact, I did bring—" "Hurry up, Lungwort. I have not eaten my dinner yet, and I am hungry." "Well, yes, of course," Lungwort said. "I understand that perfectly." Lungwort hastily put on his hat, not noticing until too late that his hat had filled up with water. Water ran down over his head and his face. With a nervous shake, he fumbled to unroll his speech paper. But before he could get it out, Mr. Okax's eyes suddenly grew bigger. "Who's that?" he demanded, as he moved his head about to bring Poppy into better focus. "Oh, forgive me," Lungwort said. "I've been rude. This is one of my daughters. Poppy, step forward. Look up. There's the good mouse. Mr. Okax, may I introduce my daughter Poppy to you?" Prodded by her father, she stepped forward gingerly. All she could see was Mr. Oaxax's eyes. She felt not just looked at, but attacked. "Poppy, eh?" he growled. "I think we have already met." "She's one of my sweetest," Lungwort offered. Mr. Oaxax ignored him. Instead, he said, "What happened to your nose, little girl?" I scraped it." "A very close call, I would say." "Yes, sir." "Little girl mice should be more careful." "Yes, sir." "Do you understand me?" Poppy wanted to run away. Lungwort nudged her. "Poppy, dear, Mr. Oaxax just asked you if you were understanding him." "Yes, sir, I do," Poppy squeaked with a bob of her head. "All right, then," Mr. Oaxax said. "Now be a good little girl and come stand under my tree while I talk to your father." Hating herself for acting so fearful, queasy at the thought of getting any closer to that mound of pellets, Poppy appealed to her father with a look. Lungwort, however, only nodded to her. "Move it!" Mr. Oaxax snapped at her. Averting her eyes away from the pellets, Poppy crept forward towards the tree, the flag dragging behind her. But when she reached the spot, she was unable to resist the fascination of that horrible mound of pellets. Once she looked, she caught sight of something that glittered. "All right, Lungwort," Mr. Oaxax said. "Let's hear what you have to say." Thank you, sir. Thank you." Lungwort held out his piece of paper. Now the thimbleful of water, as well as the rain, had drenched it. All the same, he still tried to read it. "Whereas Mr. Oaxax, Great Horned Owl, ruler of Dimwood Forest region, who out of his kindness and wisdom protects all members of the deer mice family, whereas the said family of deer mice, living in Gray House, in return for Mr. Oaxax's protection, have agreed to ask his permission whenever they wish to move about, whereas the deer mice family, having grown so great in numbers, now need a second place of habitation so as to maintain and enhance their lives with sufficient food. And," Lungwort paused to shake the paper. "And what, Lungwort?" Mr. Oaxax demanded. My paper is somewhat wet," Lungwort apologized. "So is your style," Mr. Oaxax observed. "Go on." Lungwort cleared his throat and continued to read. "Whereas Mr. Oaxax, protector of deer mice, is famous for his kindness, generosity, and compassion, therefore—" "Stop!" "Yes?" "Repeat that." "Repeat what?" "That last line about me." "About kindness, generosity, and compassion?" "Right. I like that line. That line is well written." "Yes, thank you, I wrote it. Whereas Mr. Oaxax, protector of deer mice, is famous for his kindness, generosity, and compassion, therefore, said deer mice of said Gray House humbly petition said Mr. Oaxax to... "Will you get to the point?" Mr. Oaxax screeched. "I'm sorry," Lungwort said. The rain has washed away the rest of my writing. Then just drop it and say what you want to say, the owl boomed. We humbly request your permission, Lungwort finally said, to move. Move? Yes. Why? Like I said, we are now too many. We're running out of food. We need more food. Where do you want to go? We want to go to new house. Well, first Mr. Okax blinked. Next he swiveled his head about, frowning first at Lungwort, then down at Poppy, then again at Lungwort. Finally he said, You mean that new place up along the tar road, beyond New Field? Poppy thought she heard something new in Mr. Okax's voice. She tried to grasp it. Yes, sir. Mr. Okax hesitated. Well, have you been there? Now Poppy was sure she heard something. It was uncertainty that she was hearing. I said, have you been there? Mr. Okax demanded. Well, the truth is, Lungwort said, my friend Mr. Yes or no? The owl screamed. Well, no, not exactly, but my friend told me it would make an excellent source of food for half of my family and... Lungwort, Mr. Okax interrupted. I forbid you to move to new house. Forbid means I do not give you permission. I forbid you to move to new house. What? Lungwort gasped, flapping the rain away from his face with a paw. That word had all but stuck in his throat. Permission denied, Lungwort. You cannot move to new house. But why? Because I said so. But the gray house area does not provide us enough food. It's urgent that some of us move so that we can survive and... Lungwort, no new house. Now I've got a dinner to catch, so you better skedaddle. Unless, of course, you want to please me by leaving your daughter. Then, the owl chuckled, I might reconsider. But, Mr. Okax leaned forward. Woo-hoo! He wailed in his loudest but lowest voice. The sound exploded over the top of them. Poppy, clapping her paws to her ears, ran out from under the tree toward her father, who was still standing there stuttering. But, come on, Papa, Poppy urged, trying to turn her father around. We better go. With difficulty, she turned him around. Lungwort, Mr. Okax called out suddenly. Lungwort whirled around so fast the thimble fell off of his head. Bowing, smiling, he began, you were just teasing when you said that, right? Listen to me, Lungwort, Mr. Okax said. I've got two more things I want to say to you. First, pass the word among your friends that I've spotted a new porcupine around Dimwood. Porcupine? Lungwort echoed dumbly. Yes, a particularly vicious one. Vicious means he was mean. But don't worry, I'll protect you, Lungwort. And second, and this one is about your daughter there. If you want a reason for my refusal for your moving, you ask your daughter how she and I have met before. Reason? She did not ask permission to go up to the hill. That's why you cannot go to new house. Yes, but... Now beat it, Lungwort. Now! Come on, Papa, we better leave. Lungwort glanced about for his thimble hat. It had rolled away. It was Poppy who retrieved it and put it on her head. Resigned, a sagging Lungwort allowed himself to be led away. Poppy glanced at her father. All traces of dignity were now gone. The wetness that ran down his face now was no longer rain. It was tears. Poppy hardly tried to keep the flag aloft, and as they trudged back home, she kept stealing looks into one of her paws. In her paw was clenched something that she had pried out from one of Mr. Oacax's pellets. It was Ragweed's earring. Ooh. And that is the end of chapter 6. Next time we'll start with chapter 7. Goodbye. Book's starting to get good, isn't it? Talk to you later.